And we're live. Happy Friday, Jeff.
Happy Friday indeed, Corin. How are you?
I am spectacular, my man. Spectacular.
Said like a true Aussie. Spectacular.
Spectacular. You got to get the nasal action going.
Yeah. I'll have to work on that. Spectacular. There we go.
Katie does a good Aussie accent.
Oh yeah.
I miss those days.
All
When
right.
we were all hanging out in Prague years ago, we were at dinner before you guys were moving to Mexico, and
Yeah.
Katie kept saying Mexico.
Yeah,
It was
you're right.
awesome.
Yeah, Mexico or whatever.
It was perfect.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
we think it's a spot on accent. We think it's perfect,
yes.
but you guys are like, that's enough.
There's range too, right? There's lots of Aussie accents. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I bet.
Awesome. Well, it's Friday. What does that mean?
Well, it's FAQ Friday, and FAQ Friday. Anyway, it's yeah. So just look at some of the questions that have come through the week from sellers that I've talked to, and we'll certainly cover those. And also, if there's anything that you guys got any burning questions about selling, preparing for a sale, optimizing, anything like that you want answered live, certainly fire those into the comments, and we will get to those as well and answer them today. So,
and our good friend and neighbor Brian says, "Woohoo! What up, guys?
Hey, Brian. What up, indeed." Neighbor to you.
Yes, neighbor to me. So yeah, let's. We actually have a really interesting question from the group too that I want to get into. But what's on your list to get started with, mate?
Sure. Most of these questions came from somebody that I was speaking to about, like, once you've decided to list the business, so they sort of have less to do with the build up to sell. But it was basically like, the first question is, once the business is on the market, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like you sort of hesitate to try anything new, or you hesitate to spend money, or you want to keep things looking nice and everything. But and my general advice to him was business as usual. You can't really gamble and try to launch a new product during this period, but I mean, you need to sort of continue the normal course of business operations. You cannot take your foot off the gas. This is not the time to do that. So keep running business as usual, because we don't know how long things are going to take when it gets into like buyer diligence and that kind of thing. If it takes 3 months and you've done nothing, then that's not going to look good either. So basically, the general answer to that question is business as usual. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I do. I have quite a bit on this topic. I'll try and keep it brief. So you're spot on there. Absolutely, you need to keep the focus on running the business. It's really easy to say, "Oh, I've got my business listed for sale. Let's just." Yeah, I'm making millions already. It's a long road ahead. So please focus on operating the business, number one. Number two is, as you mentioned, if you're planning on launching new products, maybe you want to stagger those out a little bit more. Oftentimes we have clients that want to launch 5 products at a time. What we say to them is, if you've got a product pipeline, go with the highest chance of success first and work your way down, and maybe just stagger those launches, because launching typically costs more money than your average month. So you want to spread that out a little bit. You also want to show momentum for the buyer coming in. They want new products coming in, so that can be a great thing actually to help them with. Don't try anything new crazy marketing tactics or invest a ton. If you are doing new marketing channels, take it step by step and make sure you're getting a quick feedback loop on ROI so you can make sure that's profitable, right? So we talk about the 3 stages of business: the startup phase, the growth phase, optimization phase. If you're selling when ideally in the optimization phase, you're already optimizing the business for profit. But if you're selling when you're still in that growth phase, which a lot of the clients we deal with are, because they're in the 3rd, 4th year of business and they're looking to sell, they're still actually in growth mode. So that's why the launching of new products, new marketing initiatives needs to be really thoughtful and measured, right? So having, like we talked about yesterday, having the financial metrics in place before doing anything else, making sure you have short feedback loops, and just placing little bets as opposed to going all in on new strategies.
Yeah, got it. You know, it's almost similar to like if you're listing your house for sale, you know, like while it's on the market, you know, you're not going to do anything drastic to the house, but you still need to keep the lawn mowed, and you still need the flowers watered and the windows cleaned, and you know, you still like, you know, it still needs to operate like a home.
But don't start building a 3rd level or something. Or
well, that's
start
right.
building a pool out the back. You don't want to be doing that while you're selling.
If your house is for sale, you're not going to put on a new roof. You know what I mean? You're gonna. Yes. It's yeah. Cool. So, right, what do you do when the business is on the market? Now, this is. I don't know if this is maybe a common misconception or whatever, but where this sort of question came from is like the difference between kind of a DIY sale and using a broker. And I guess his general impression was that if he does a DIY sale, he gets to choose who he sells the business to, and if he goes the broker route, he doesn't get that choice anymore. And so there was a bit of a myth there that we had a good conversation about dispelling. And I don't know if that's common or not, because he's the first one that I've sort of heard that reaction. Is like, do I still get to choose who or is the broker just going to try to get me the highest price and then facilitate the sale because I've signed my life away to the broker and then they handle everything for me? And that is absolutely not the case. You absolutely have 100% control over who you partner with. Our job is to find you as many competing offers as possible and help you understand and translate and negotiate on all of those terms and sort of push back where we can and all of those kind of things. But at the end of the day, you sign the agreement. And so if you're not fully comfortable with who you're partnering with or who you're selling the business to, or you're not comfortable with any part of the deal, that's up to you. Our job is to keep finding you the best offers and keep translating them to you so you fully understand what all of those terms and conditions are. But at the end of the day, that choice is yours. If you don't feel comfortable moving forward with the sale, then we find another buyer.
This is actually an interesting question. So at first, my initial reaction was exactly what you just said. And then I thought, hang on a minute, that's not always the case. It depends on who you partner with to sell the business. Because there are some platforms out there that can help you sell a business where you don't actually have as much control over who the buyer is. So it depends on who you sell with as to that result. But you've explained how we work.
Right. Yeah.
But in other scenarios, that would be off. Yeah, that would potentially be out of your control. I can see where this question comes from. It's quite an interesting one, actually.
And I should have set that up, that this conversation was in context of how we operate. So that was my answer was coming from like how we operate, not how general brokers do. But that's interesting that is actually the case. I suppose, are they less of a broker and more of just a marketplace then in that case, where you basically sign the rights over to your business and you'll sell it when this price gets hit no matter what?
Yeah, so the marketplace approach can be a good idea in the fact of it's all hands off done for you. But if you're really trying to target a specific strategic buyer, or you're looking to find something out of the ordinary, using an M&A advisor or a sell-side advisor running a process like we do, that's how you find all of those buyer options. And it's a very collaborative approach. Right? On an 8-figure deal we're working on right now, we've had multiple conversations where we get an indication of interest, which is essentially a bid. So not an LOI, an indication of interest, right? Gives you the general terms and also the price. And then we negotiate that. And the client defaults to, well, this is their best offer. And we've been having to remind them that this is the start, it's not the end. What would make this better, right? Or what do we like about this buyer versus the other buyer? This is a collaboration to make the offer the best it can be, and also find the right partner to sell to that can take the brand to the next level if that's one of your concerns. In this case, 100% is they're wanting to find a partner to take this to the next level. There's so much room left to grow in this brand. So that's really important to them, and therefore we're making sure that we bring the right buyers to the table, and we're just parting ways with everyone else. So that's definitely part of our process. But cool question though, I like it.
Yeah, it was cool. It was actually turned into an interesting conversation because it was, it was nice that some of these myths are dispelled and somebody like got it, and certainly the way we operate anyway, and the way any good broker should, to be a sell side advisor, to really be in the person's corner. And it's in everyone's best interest at that point to get the best outcome. And part of that outcome is the seller being comfortable with who they're partnering with. So that's, that's really, really important. Let's see, what else was here? Now I can't read my own handwriting.
Oh, that happened to me before.
Yeah. How do I get paid? Meaning, not like, a check handed to you. I guess we were sort of talking about structure and potential deal terms and those kind of things. And again, I was only really delivering this from our perspective and our process. But the question was more like, okay, well, if there's structures and seller notes and earnouts and all these kind of like holdbacks, whatever, how is this money actually delivered to me? How do I get it? Do I just go to my mailbox one day and see a check, or do it? You know what I mean? So those
mailbox
were like
money.
Yeah, there you go. It's delivered in a black leather briefcase where a guy has to unhook it from his wrist and hand it over to you. Sometimes it's paid in diamonds and other rare stuff. No, I'm kidding. It's,
uncut, uncut diamonds. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
That's great. Well, let's break it down in structure. So if there is some sort of staggered payment over time or what have you, we've actually had a few of these this month. So as far as our process, we actually manage that. So we were reaching out to the buyers. We have calendar alerts set up. We reach out to the buyer, say, hey, Mr. Buyer, the notes payable or whatever. We look at the contract. We refer to that contract. We get in touch with their attorneys. If there's any sort of, one of them was an escrow holdback for a period of time. So we reached out to the attorney saying, yes, this is about to come due. We're all good. Confirm everyone's ready to sell. We, in that case, reconfirmed our client's bank details because they may want to change. And that was a wire situation. So most of these, because the amounts are large, they're a wire. We don't want a check in the mail scenario unless we absolutely have to. Typically, it's a wire. So either the buyer's attorney will be holding money in escrow and they'll wire that out to everyone. And in this case, they were wiring direct. One was through an attorney, the others were payments direct. And we get our commission out of that too. So we're incentivized to make sure all those payments come through. So for our clients, we manage that whole process from the first payment, which is usually wire as well, through any other payment that's coming through. We help shepherd that to fruition, make sure it's paid, make sure it's calculated properly, and everything's moving along. There are other scenarios where maybe it's a performance-based or there's interest payable and things like this. We typically set that up as a schedule on a spreadsheet, basically, so you know when your payments are coming. If you're not doing a deal with us, I would recommend scheduling all of that out or getting some help with that, because you don't want to forget. As funny as it might sound, you don't want to forget when you're supposed to be paid and how. So you want to set all that up front, have that schedule there, and set up calendar reminders basically to.
Yes, don't trust that they're just going to do it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What's that Grant Cardone quote? Who's got my money? Who's got my money?
That should be everybody's quote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so I guess in terms of the buyer's lawyer holding the money in escrow, and then the payments are made to the broker, and then the broker pays out the wire, or does the lawyer wire it directly to the broker's commission and the so that they separate all of that stuff out, so there's nothing more for the seller to do except just receive the money in their bank account?
Yeah, so the buy-side attorney will put together, or the sell-side attorney, whoever's handling the cash, will put together what's called a funds flow memo, and it will step out all of the payments, so the total paid, who's getting what, when you get paid, and wire details will all be on one document. We all sign off on it, and we all get paid at the same time. So once the money's released, it's wired. Typically, the seller gets their piece, we get our success fee. If there's anyone else that's getting paid out of the deal, they get paid all at the same time. So we don't have to, we don't take all the money. The client doesn't take all the money. It's done automatically, shows up in your bank account. That's it. Very, very straightforward process.
The flow funnel. Good. Well, that's.
And I gotta say, unfortunately, it's a little bit of an anticlimax when the cash comes in, because it's usually been such a long process, and then there's a few extra days at the end before you get paid, so you're really excited about getting paid, and then maybe a day later you'll get paid. It's like, well, that's awesome, but
in our situation, it was like months, because we had structured a deal where we got 50% of the money paid at close, and then there was 50% of the money basically almost paid out after a secondary diligence kind of thing, once all the performance metrics were hit. So there was a 1 month there where we had half the money in our bank account, but we didn't want to touch it, because what if this deal goes sideways and we got to pay it all back? So we're like, I don't want to, like,
stabilization payment.
Well, different business, we'll say. This was a very different business, not an e-commerce business. But anyway, this was this is what we agreed to, and everything was fine, and the process was fine. But basically, the months-long process to when we first signed an agreement, it was still months before we saw any money, because there was lots of back and forth. And but basically, the first couple of weeks, we spent the money in our mind. And then the next couple of weeks was like, oof, maybe we shouldn't really do that because of this, this, and this. And then we're like, well, then maybe if we invest, so it was basically like we went the whole roller coaster. And then by the time the money came, we're like, I don't really want to do anything with it. You're right. It was completely like, because in my mind, I'd already bought the Maserati, and then talked myself out of buying the Maserati, and then bought an investment property. And then we talked ourselves out of buying an investment property. And then we talked about buying another business, and then we talked ourselves out of that. So then we really just kind of landed nowhere. And then when the money came, we were like, I don't know. We still no further ahead than where we were. So it's still in our bank account. So
it's like a stage of grief almost.
Yeah, right.
It's weird as that sounds.
Yeah, the 12 stages of getting a massive amount of money all at once. But and to be quite honest, and to be quite honest with you, it's still in our bank account, because we still don't know what to do with it. It's still, But anyway, one I guess last question, just sort of to tack on to that, that did sort of come up in that. It wasn't actually a question, but it was talked about, so I'll pose it as a question. Is that what's expected of me during the process? What's expected of the seller during this month-long engagement? What do they need to be on calls? Do they need to be answering emails 24/7? Is this going to be hours a week that they now have to dedicate to this or commit to this. So what's typically expected of a seller in a standard scenario is, other than just to be available.
Yeah.
But how much of their time is really going to be pulled away from running their business during this, do you think?
So again, we'll talk only from our perspective, because that's really the only perspective I can give. So when we're working with a client, we do a lot of the work up front, as we've talked about at length. We do all that prep work up front, so we know as much about the business as possible. Our marketing materials are really complete and thorough. And we have all that diligence information ready to go. So we've got 90% of the information we need that any buyer will ask, right? Not that we're going to give all of those buyers all that information up front, right? But we have all of that. So the purpose of that is so we really understand the business and we're able to field a lot of those initial inquiries. So essentially, there may be additional questions or specific to your business questions that a buyer might have. So dealing with a cosmetics deal at the moment, and some of the buyers have very specific, detailed questions regarding the formula of cosmetics. Now, that's not my area of expertise, and our team, we don't go deep dive on the product level. So we needed to ask some questions related to the product specific or ingredient specific questions, right? So that was handled on email. There's no rush to get back. It's just, hey, when you get a sec, can you take a look at this? So you might get random emails coming through, generally in the weekday, which is good. Here's a question that a buyer had. We're not going to be referring every question that comes through, of course, but when there's something outside of the norm or something that might need an update or your advice, your input on, that's when you'd be required to help. Other than that, it's buyer intro calls. So once we get indications and we're in the right ballpark, they're the right type of buyer we want to deal with, we will have a meeting with them. Typically lasts half hour, 45 minutes, just a meet and greet, get to know them a little bit, see if you like them, see if you want to do business with them. We'll handle the scheduling of that, follow up, all that sort of stuff. We will note down any questions they ask, any additional information. Most of that we'll already have, so we'll handle all of that. Reviewing the offers. So something we help our clients with is we actually model out all of the offers side by side so you can see them and kind of judge how those offers actually look, because there's a lot of different terms and a lot of different mechanisms buyers use to say, hey, look over here, and really the deal's over there, right? Because maybe they want to sound smart, or maybe they want to confuse you a little bit. We'll make sure that's as transparent as possible. And we like having them side by side. So we'll walk you through. Typically, I just shoot videos, actually, a screen share video, walking you through the deals, and you can take a look at that when you want, and we can jump on a call and discuss. So meeting buyers, discussing offers, specific questions are really the time constraints. Usually, because of our process, on week 2 or week 3 of the launch, you'll typically be doing those buyer calls. After that, it's reviewing and negotiating offers, and then it goes into diligence. So I'd say really on the first week or 2, it'll be very light, maybe 3 hours, 5 hours, if we get a lot of stuff, a lot of questions. On that 2-3 week where you're meeting with buyers, up to an hour per call allow, let's say. So you might have 3 or 5 of those, so maybe 5 hours across the week 2 and 3. And then once we're in diligence, that does become, it needs to be a high priority to get it done quickly. So we want to make sure that feedback loop's really fast, that we're moving the deal forward and we're getting forward to closing as soon as possible. So in diligence, that can be quite a bit more time, but in that launch phase, it can be pretty light.
Got it. All right. And you had a question from the group, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So Mike in our Facebook group, W Exit Community, asked a question. How does it work when you buy or sell an Amazon account? Do you need to contact Amazon in advance to prepare them? The changes to account ownership are about to happen, so they don't freak out when things change. and someone logs into the admin account from different location and computer. Now, get asked this all the time, and I'm going to have a little bit of a politician's answer to this because it depends. It depends on who the buyer is, what the deal terms are, as to how we would transfer the asset. Big disclaimer, if you're just buying an empty account, I would not suggest doing that. We don't deal in empty accounts, we sell businesses. So if it's a business, one of the ways you can transfer is actually get in touch with Amazon, let them know that you could say a sale's happening. We have a different script that we often get our clients to use. I won't share that because it depends when the deal's actually happening as to what we would say, right? It changes from time to time what we actually say to Amazon. And there may be different terms that you need to think about when it comes to transferring. The short version is we get Amazon in the loop. So the seller will reach out to Amazon, let them know a change is happening, ask for directions on how to do that. The technical side of how we do that is we do it on a Zoom call. Both the buyer and the seller on that call, we transfer everything, the buyer logs in, they're good to go, off we go. That's one way to do it. There's also a brand transfer where you can move the existing brand IP and listings to be controlled by another account. So in this case, if the buyer wants to use their own account and absorb your brand into theirs, there's a brand transfer process that also you get Amazon in the loop on this to make sure that it's all done appropriately. Unfortunately, you need to move inventory in and out of Amazon. It's a bit of a pain, but we've done a number of these very successfully. Amazon knows that you own your business, you own the trademarks, so there's a set process there. There is other ways to do this without getting Amazon involved. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but that is quite popular as well, to not get Amazon involved at all and just run things behind the scenes. I can't comment on that, but there are other ways to do that. Depends on your risk tolerance, and that kind of goes in the gray area where maybe there's not an actual business, you're just trying to take over an old account or something. We don't touch those. There's too much liability and there's no real value there. There's no business. So hopefully that helps, Mike, on the specifics of how to transition. Essentially, yes, as much as possible, you want to get Amazon involved in the process so they know what's happening and the account doesn't get shut down while you're doing the transfer.
Excellent. Good questions today.
Right. Yeah, that was. And right on the half-hour mark. That's
basically takes us to half hour. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Well,
so how can people get in touch?
Yeah. On that note, yes, sales@thefbabroker.com. By far the best email to use. It comes straight to my inbox. If you're thinking about selling now, if you're thinking about planning on selling in the future, thinking about wanting to know what the business may be worth on the market today, just to give you a starting point, whatever it might be, send me a note at sales@thefbabroker.com and we'll arrange a time to have a call, learn a bit about your business and what your goals are, and go from there.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hopefully that was helpful. Have a great weekend ahead, everyone. And thanks, Jeff, for jumping on the call as well. All right.
All right.
Talk to you next week.
Bye for now.
Later.